What's up, everybody? So I've gotten a couple requests on Instagram to explain the weed guard that I've been using on some of my fly tying videos, and it's really easy. It's called the forward loop weed guard, and I have tried a multitude of different weed guards, and to me this is kind of the perfect balance of being really weedless but also not affecting your hookup ratio. As some weed guards, like the double loop weed guard, I think it's a great weed guard. I mean, it keeps stuff from getting it keeps your fly from getting caught up, but I do kind of feel like it hinders your hookup ratio a little bit. So something that was important to me was to keep it weedless, but to also not hinder your ability to have a fish get pinned. And for me, that's been the forward loop weed guard. And like I said, really easy to tie. Once you get it, no problem. Just takes a teeny bit of practice, and we'll get into how to tie this. Alright, so here you'll see I have a completed fly. I have not cut the thread yet, just so we can cinch down this weed guard. And what I like to use is this Mason's 30-pound hard type nylon, essentially just monofilament, and I'll cut off more than I need to make this weed guard. So I don't know, maybe that's, call it 4 inches about. And you'll see the reason for that here in a little bit. But I'll grab some pliers. These are kind of overkill for this, and I'll just put just a teeny bit of that monofilament in there and squeeze as hard as I can and bend this monofilament up. And what that does is it creates some grooves on this mono. I don't know if you can see it, but essentially one it makes it flat, and it also creates some grooves on it so that we can tie it on a little bit easier. So because this is a forward loop weed guard, I'm gonna try and keep this first shoe on the side of the hook that's furthest away from me. And so we'll get 5 or 6 tight wraps on there, and then what you'll do is you'll bend this monofilament, and I will find where when I bend it and I push it back like this, it's just barely missing this hook point. What you don't want, or at least in my opinion, what you don't want is if it's too long and the fish eats it, there's a chance that monofilament will come back, get caught on your hook, and the fish won't get hooked. So I like to do it just slightly smaller so it has some clearance there, so if a fish comes up and eats it, your weed guard isn't the reason that you missed the fish, or the fish comes unpinned, or what have you. So I'll find that length just by kind of sliding it around to see where I feel like I could cut this monofilament, tie it in, and it still have clearance from that hook. And so I'll just mark that with my fingers, and I will cut it and give it just a little bit of extra room, just because we're gonna use these pliers again. We're gonna grab just a teeny little piece on there in the end, squeeze as hard as you can, fold up, and make your little shoe there. And then I'll hold it there with my fingernail and go back and forth. So right now, it just barely touches this hook, which I don't want. Okay, So I'm gonna go back in with my scissors, cut off just a little bit of that shoe, go back in with my pliers, make another one. Should be good now. And I'm gonna lay that shoe right next to the other one, but on the side of the hook that's facing me. And I'll start with a couple loose wraps just to get it in place. And then once it's there, I'll start tightening down on it. Now you'll notice, see how it's got clearance now? It's not going to hit that hook point. You'll notice that the weed guard is pointing backwards. What you typically want is for it to be standing straight up. And so in order to get it to do that, you just have to take your thread and bring it back behind that weed guard. Sometimes this takes quite a few wraps, but it's much better than it sitting back here underneath your hook and not really keeping your hook weedless. So there's a kind of a quick way to do that, and you really just kind of make a shield with your fingernails and pinch them together, and then you can just run your, well, if you don't have messed up fingernails like me, you can run your thread just along your fingernails. And that way you can do it fairly quickly. See how that weed guard's slowly starting to stand up a little bit more. There you go. Make sure it's not touching again, still has clearance. Okay, perfect. And grab my whip finish tool. What I generally do is I'll take the triangle on the whip finish and go behind that weed guard. There you go, there's your finished weed guard. I'm gonna go ahead and burn off some of these little excess hairs here. Grab my resin. Definitely get the base of that weed guard and try and get behind it just a little bit so it really holds in place. Once it's in that resin, you can kind of bend it around a little bit. Now, if you get to this point and you push this back and it's hitting that hook point, really, really simple solution. You essentially just create a double post weed guard by cutting it here right in the middle. And that way it won't get caught on the hook and you still have a weed guard, and it will work just fine. I just feel like this forward loop tends to go through the grass just a little bit easier without getting caught up quite as much. Yeah, so that's it. I really, really like this weed guard. I think it does a really good job at sliding through the grass and whatnot without getting caught up. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and go tie some up.